Hi, my name is Reynol Mendoza, and today we'll be talking about the gender equality in sports and examining the gender pay gap. In my group, I have Ramon Benavides, David Silva, Keandra Richardson, and Austin Jordan. On this first slide, we introduce our research question, which is focusing specifically on sports. How does gender inequality affect the wage gap between male and female athletes? One of the biggest questions is how big is the gender pay gap in sports? This is a very controversial topic because it brings up a lot of arguments, and people believe that it is unfair for women to be paid less than men when they are both professional athletes in whatever sport that they play or in whatever they do. The first bullet talks about the Grand Slam in tennis, which is one of the highest, most competitive events that a tennis player can attend, and it shows that it says that the champions for both men and women in this event will receive the same amount of prize pay. So this being said, it means that if a man would win the Grand Slam, he would get paid just as much as a woman would. This is also one of the main reasons why tennis is the most lucrative sport for women and the sport with the narrowest pay gap. The narrowest pay gap means that the difference between what men get paid and what women get paid is not very significant. In most sports, the pay gap between gender is outrageous. So, in the NBA, the lowest salary is $779,658. And that is, it is $779,658 more than the highest salary in the WNBA. It is said that LeBron James makes more than what the WNBA makes in a year. The gender pay gap in sports is unfair to women and it makes them angry because they want to be respected for the hard work that they're putting in their sport. They want to be treated and rewarded equally and fairly for the work that they do. In 2016, members of the U.S. women's soccer team filed a wage discrimination action against the U.S. Soccer Federation with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, claiming that the women's team made $20 million more than the men's team, yet the women were paid about a quarter of what the men earn. While the gap is minimal between male and female tennis players, it grows enormously when it comes to male and female basketball players. The highest earning female basketball player is Kayla McBride, who earned $163,000 in 2018, while Stephen Curry earned $37,457,154. The photo at the bottom of the slide just shows how much of a significance there is between every sport when it comes to being paid. In the NBA, there is a $4.5 million salary, while in the WNBA there's a $75,000 salary, and etc. with those three other sports. Sports and media have played a huge part in the way that the gender pay gap has been handled. The media has had a large influence on the amount of money athletes are paid. So this means that since women make up around 40% of participants in sports, somehow sports media coverage for women's sports is around 4%. This shows that women are less paid because they are not covered as frequently by news media, and people aren't talking about them as much as they are talking about men's sports. There have been changes in campaigns to support women in sports. Adidas has launched campaigns supporting gender equity with a women-led team. In 2019, ESPN aired 14 NWSL games, even though this does not compare with the coverage the MLS gets. It is a progress. Statistics for the gender pay gap show that the U.S. women's national team has had great success over the past few years. Its victory in the 2015 World Cup final put up 26 million viewers, which remains the most viewed U.S. soccer game of all time. The pay-per-player for an exhibition game stands at $3,600 for women, while it is $5,000 for men. Women would receive a $75,000 bonus for winning the World Cup, but if a men's team won it, then each player would receive $390,000. Salaries by men and women in the NBA and WNBA have a pretty big gap that is just unacceptable. These coaches have the same responsibilities and same contracts, but the men coaches make more than the women coaches. At a college, the women's basketball head coach makes almost half of what the men's basketball coach makes. Even though prize money has equal between men and women in tennis, there's still a big gap between them. Men consistently out-earn women. This is just photos on how graphs and tables on 3 different sports, and it demonstrates the amount of money that is being paid to women and paid to men. So just as I was talking about earlier, in the NBA and WNBA, there was a very large gap between those two. And also in soccer, tennis is not as bad, but it is still pretty significant. Factors that affect the gender pay gap are lack of media attention, just as I explained in the slide before. The media attention for women's sports is much more less as compared to men's sports. It is a major issue because it decreases the popularity of female athletes. Revenue differences are: the WNBA generates about $60 million per year, while the NBA generates about $8 billion per year. The season length also plays a huge factor in these amount of money that's being paid. The WNBA plays almost a third of how many games the NBA teams play, and in order for these women to be able to make as much money as these men do, they would need to play more games to produce more revenue for their teams if they want to make more money. The attendance is also a huge part. The average attendance for a women's National League soccer game in 2019 was 7,337, while the average attendance for a men's game was 21,310. In conclusion, the pay gap in sports has been an ongoing issue for many years. This issue needs to be addressed, and women deserve to be paid more regardless of any gender stereotypes. With continued fight and support, women athletes will soon achieve equality.